Every single day we're living inside this huge, incredibly connected system we call the environment. But really, how much do we get about how it all works? Well, today, we're going to break down the basic rules of the game. From how energy flows through it to our own pretty complicated role in the whole thing. Let's dive in.
All right, let's kick things off with a little riddle. Think about a garden in your backyard, a huge wild forest, and a little fish tank sitting on a desk. They seem totally different, right? But believe it or not, there's one single powerful idea that ties them all together. Any guesses? The answer? They are all ecosystems. Yep, it's that simple. It doesn't matter if it's natural like that forest or something we made, like an aquarium. They all run on the exact same basic principles of connection and balance.
So what is an ecosystem exactly? Well, to put it simply, it's all the living things in one area. We're talking plants, animals, microbes, interacting with all the non-living stuff around them. Things like the air, the water, the soil. It's this complete package where absolutely everything is connected to everything else.
And we can break down any ecosystem into two main parts. You've got the living parts, which scientists call biotic, and the non-living parts, the abiotic. So the abiotic side is things like the temperature, how much it rains, the wind, and the dirt on the ground. These non-living things basically set the stage for all the living, biotic components to play out the drama of life.
Now, inside this system, every living thing has a job to do. Let's start right at the bottom, at the foundation, the producers. These guys are the real powerhouses. We're mostly talking about green plants, and they're incredible because they make their own food. They use photosynthesis to grab the sun's energy and turn it into fuel, pretty much for all other life on Earth.
Okay, next up, we have the consumers. And that's, pretty much everyone else. From the tiniest bug to the biggest lion, these are the organisms that get their energy by eating other living things. It doesn't matter if they're herbivores just eating plants, carnivores eating other animals, or omnivores eating a bit of both. At the end of the day, they all rely on the hard work of those producers.
And finally, let's talk about the unsung heroes of literally every ecosystem, the decomposers. Think of tiny bacteria and fungi. These little guys are nature's essential cleanup crew. Their job is to break down all the dead stuff and waste, which unlocks all the vital nutrients and sends them right back into the soil for the producers to use all over again. It is the ultimate recycling program, and it's been running for billions of years.
So this whole cycle of eating and being eaten, it creates what we call a food chain. Here's a super simple example for you. The grass is the producer. A goat, which is a primary consumer, comes along and eats the grass. And then a human, a secondary consumer, eats the goat. See, it's a straight line, a direct transfer of that energy from one link in the chain to the next. But wait a minute, where did that energy come from in the first place? For pretty much every single ecosystem on this planet, the ultimate source of power is the sun. It all starts with that big ball of fire in the sky.
But get this, and this is a fact that just blows my mind. Of all the energy from the sun that actually hits the Earth, green plants are only able to grab and turn about 1% of it into food. 1%! That tiny sliver of energy is what powers almost the entire living world. It's wild.
And you know what? It gets even less efficient as you go up the chain. As that energy moves from one level to the next, say from a plant to the animal that eats it, only about 10% of the energy actually gets stored and passed on. The other 90% is lost, mostly as heat just from the process of, living. This is famously called the 10% rule.
And that huge energy drop-off at every single step, that is exactly why most food chains are so short. We're talking 3, maybe 4 steps long. After that, there's just not enough energy left to support another level. The energy has pretty much run out.
So, okay, the food chain is this really elegant way of moving energy around, but it has a dark side, a really dangerous one. What happens when something gets into the system that shouldn't be there? Something man-made that doesn't provide any energy and can't be broken down.
This question leads us to a really critical and frankly scary concept called biological magnification. It's what happens when nasty, harmful chemicals that don't break down get more and more and more concentrated as they move up the food chain. Let me show you how it works. Imagine some pesticides from a farm get washed into a lake. Tiny plants in the water absorb a little bit of it. Then a small fish comes along and eats a ton of those plants, concentrating all that pesticide in its body. Then a bigger fish eats a ton of those small fish. And then when we eat those bigger fish, we get the highest, most concentrated dose of that chemical. It accumulates right inside of us at the very top of the food chain.
And this whole idea of biological magnification, it's really a perfect window into our larger impact on the environment. The things we do affect these natural systems in some really big ways, from the highest reaches of the atmosphere right down to the trash we throw on the ground.
So, let's start way up with the ozone layer. Ozone is just a special type of oxygen molecule, and it forms this incredibly important protective shield in our upper atmosphere. Its main job? To block the sun's most dangerous ultraviolet or UV radiation. That's the stuff that can cause some serious problems for us, including skin cancer.
But then, back in the 1980s, scientists found something terrifying. Our vital shield was getting thinner, a lot thinner. And the culprit was traced to these synthetic chemicals called chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. This was stuff that was in all kinds of things back then, like refrigerators and aerosol spray cans.
Okay, now let's bring it all the way back down to Earth and talk about the stuff we throw away. Basically, our garbage falls into two big categories. You have biodegradable waste, think vegetable peels, paper, stuff that can be broken down naturally by those decomposers we talked about. But then you have non-biodegradable waste, like plastics. This stuff just doesn't break down. It sticks around in the environment for a very long time.
So why can't nature's cleanup crew just take care of all our trash? Well, it's because those decomposers, the bacteria and fungi, they've spent millions of years evolving to break down natural stuff. They just don't have the biological tools in their toolbox to take apart something complex and artificial like plastic. To the natural world, this stuff is completely alien.
So from the way energy flows from a blade of grass all the way to the plastic that lasts for centuries, it's so clear that we're not just living in the environment. We are a massive, powerful piece of a global ecosystem. We started this whole conversation by looking at the balance in a simple garden or a fish tank. So I guess the final question is, what kind of balance are we going to choose to create for our entire planet?